Windsor Carriby Local Planning Panel. Today, 28th of January 2026. I declare the meeting open shortly after 2 p.m. Windsor Carriby Shire Council acknowledges the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land we now call the Windsor Carriby Shire. I pay my respect to elders past and present, and I would also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders present here today. My name is Stephen Lehman and I am the chair of today's panel. Also sitting on the panel today are expert members Larissa Ozog to my left and Stephen Leithley to my far left, along with community member Chris McCann to my right. This meeting is being live streamed to Council's website and the recording will be made available on the website after this meeting. At this point, can I ask everyone to please turn their mobile phones to silent so that there's no interruption to the meeting. Thank you. There are no apologies from the panel. We have a full complement on the panel today. Regarding declarations of interest, there is one declaration of interest, but I'll ask each panel member to confirm no declaration of interest. Mr. Leithley. Larissa, I believe you had something.
Sorry, thank you. I just declare an interest. I know and have worked with Claire Harley, who's the strategic planner on the matter of 5.1, the planning proposal. I haven't been in touch with Claire for the last few years, so I believe the declaration is a non-pecuniary and non-significant interest. So thanks.
I've considered the declaration and I agree that it is non-pecuniary and non-significant. So Ms Ozog is able to participate in the deliberations on this matter, in my opinion. Anything from you, Chris? The council website contains a copy of the operational guidelines for the panel meetings, but I'll summarise the most important points. The panel is charged with 2 planning proposals and 2 development applications on the agenda today. There are 14 registered speakers and I've had 2 late registrations which I'm happy to receive. As per the local planning panel's direction, operational procedures, public members addressing the panel are given a 3-minute time limit. However, this is at the discretion of the panel. If there are matters arising that the panel wishes to pose questions on, then we will ask you to respond to those. So, I'm sorry, I can't really speak too much louder. My mouth is this far from the microphone.
I thought the microphone might be able to turn up a bit.
I don't know. Can we do anything about that? I'll speak as loud as I reasonably can. Gotcha. So I will ask speakers, we have a number of speakers on one of the items, and I would ask speakers not to repeat the same issues each time. If you agree with what was said by the previous speaker, please confirm that, but don't reiterate it indefinitely. Because I've heard it once and that's all I need to hear it, and if you agree with it, all you have to do is say so. If you've got something different to add, fine, but I'm not going to sit here all afternoon hearing the same thing 20 times over. So these are the rules of the panel. Thank you. The first matter is the planning proposal for land at 37 Yarrawa Road, Moss Vale. So speaking for the proposal, I have planning consultants Urbis attending via Teams. Do we have them?
Yes, we're here.
So first on my list, Annika Hayther.
Yes.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, sure. I just have a short presentation to share as well. Is that okay?
How long? Well, 3 minutes?
Yes, 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'll just quickly get it up, and if you can just let me know when you can see it.
I can see a title.
Perfect. So I'll be presenting on behalf of Adrian and the rest of the Urbis team as well, and they'll just be here to answer any questions that the panel might have. So I'm presenting today on behalf of HarperCollins for our site at 37 Yarra Road, Moss Vale. As I said, I'm joined by Adrian and Stu from Urbis. We also have on the line our technical experts from AEP and ADP to answer any matters that the panel might raise in relation to biodiversity and flooding. I only have a short time today, so I'll just do a quick acknowledgement to acknowledge that we're on various Aboriginal lands today and pay my respects. Before I get into the presentation, I think it's important to acknowledge that HarperCollins is not just any developer. They are Australia and New Zealand's oldest publisher, and they have been established in the Moss Vale community for over 50 years. They employ almost 200 local staff, and so this planning proposal is really about maintaining HarperCollins' long-term presence in the region. At its core, this planning proposal seeks to look at the medium and long-term strategic vision for this site. The current zoning of C3 environmental management does not support or reflect the existing land use, which has been established on the site for over 50 years. Given residential land uses bound the site to the north, east and south, we consider that the most logical land use for the site is residential over the long term. However, our proposal seeks to provide an interim solution which enables HarperCollins to continue their established operation on the site in a manner that we see as compatible with residential land use. So at this stage, we believe the core question for the panel is whether the proposal has strategic merit. The site is well located between existing residential land uses, is supported by enabling infrastructure, and is a large lot under single ownership, which enables a coordinated strategic delivery of homes. These homes will assist in meeting council's dwelling targets and are designed to be consistent with the dwelling typology of Ashbourne to the south and Harbison to the north. So we feel that the strategic merit has been clearly established, and this has been recognised by council in their recommendation for support today. In terms of site-specific matters, we just really want to reiterate that our proposed layout for the site is indicative only and intended to show how residential use may occur on the site in future, rather than being a specific or concrete subdivision layout. However, at a high level, our technical experts show that matters relating to biodiversity, flooding and acoustics are workable and can be managed through development control plan measures. So in terms of next steps, and subject to the recommendations of the panel, we intend to provide any additional supporting information necessary so that we can progress this proposal, and we're comfortable that the remaining site-specific matters can be worked through at future stages. And that's all from me.
Okay, I have two other speakers on the list. Are they Adrian Villela and Stuart Doran? Are they in support of you and here to answer questions, or did they have a separate address they wanted to make?
No, Chair, through you, in support of all those points raised by Annika, here to answer and support any questions that the panel might have.
Thank you. I think the panel may have some questions, and I think Stephen Leithley has a question.
Thank you. I'm just interested in what the acoustic issues are out on that site.
So in terms of the acoustic issues, I'm happy to kind of take that kind of point. I think the acoustic side of things, trying to understand your question more broadly, obviously there's going to be a need to ensure that the existing operation of the warehouse can continue without conflicting with future residential uses on the site. We have undertaken that early acoustic assessment to inform minimum setbacks, and we would stress that they are absolute minimums, and there's a need to ensure that they are reasonable and can be adhered to, both inside the future warehouse lot boundary and also with future residential. So we're mindful of that, but we do think there is the compatibility and the absolute ability to have that managed through future development control planning in and around the site. I understand that you guys, the panel might have been out there on site today. I understand that the CEO, General Manager from HarperCollins, Jim Demetrio, might have been out there on site, and there's been a few temporary operations, and I think you might have been able to hear a few forklifts out there on site today and moving around. Certainly in the site's condition as it is, the noise does travel far, but there's no specific acoustic treatment done to the site, but it would need to be done in order to be compatible with, effectively, in short, residential uses getting closer to the warehouse operation.
Yes, the land use conflict potential would need to be addressed, and
That's acknowledged.
a LUCRA probably would need to accompany the application, just in relation to that point. Also, in terms of biodiversity, we've been made aware that there are some biodiversity issues on the site. Just visiting the site today, it looks fairly isolated, fragmented, small pockets out there. That's sort of my view. What I guess also concerned any land going conserved on the site, how that's actually going to be managed, mindful that council is unlikely to be wanting to take it on as a liability. So what would actually be the strategy in terms of conserving any biodiversity value land out there on site?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and I think we do have I do have Darcy on board, who attending here, who's who prepared the biodiversity assessment. And panel, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not too sure if the panel was made aware that DQ also had a meeting out on site after council completed its report. And as an agency, they came out on site with Darcy and the team and had a walk around. So is the panel aware that that meeting took place?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
Darcy, I might give it over to you just to clarify kind of where we're at from a biodiversity point of view.
Sure. So I'm Darcy Kilvert from Anderson Environment Planning, who undertook the biodiversity assessment for that site. As the panel observed, it is mostly cleared. There are some key areas of biodiversity, which is the existing shale, sandstone and highland woodland on site, which is a threatened ecological community. What we're proposed for the long-term management of biodiversity on site is a control in the DCP, which requires a vegetation management plan to be produced, which would be produced at the development application stage. With the small area of biodiversity that there is on site, I think a vegetation management plan would be the most appropriate way to management in the long term.
What about land ownership of that land? That's mainly what I'm concerned about, because if it goes into some sort of conservation area, as I said, I don't think council's going to be interested in taking it on.
I'm not a planner, so I won't go too into detail of the planning side, but generally what I see with these sorts of sites is that there is a community title that sits over those retained lands, and that's managed under a community lot.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways, if I could also jump in there as the planner. And sorry, just to clarify this for the panel to understand, so I'm director in the planning team here at Urbis. So certainly the way in which we've dealt with this in a few instances on planning proposals of this nature is certainly using the zoning to firstly protect it, the vegetation management plan, as Darcy has said. Sometimes we have been able to work with councils whereby the proponent might be willing to negotiate and work with council through a planning agreement whereby some initial funding is established that helps support the ongoing maintenance of that area. That's certainly not on the table at this point in time, but there is that ability to work through that with council and the relevant agencies, or also put that into a private lot, a larger private lot, if that were to be a compatible kind of case. I think also, to the panel's awareness, I think, certainly where this is located, we have talked about potentially the R3 zone in that location. That could present the ability for aged care living or the like, or seniors living. We know that we've got the Harbison site just immediately to the north. Part of that site actually was originally part of the HarperCollins site, and they purchased that site. Harbison purchased a portion of that site to extend its facilities. So I guess I'd make that note because there is that ability through future land uses that, as Darcy alluded to, it could be community title, it could be all under one ownership for that portion of that land that is sensitive to the biodiversity matters.
No further questions from Mr. Leafling. Larissa?
Sorry, I'd just like to ask, I understand the plan's indicative, the use structure plan, which I understand hasn't been totally refined, and I think it is quite problematic in some of the layout and kind of the arrangement of the kind of subdivision without having the detail around the lots and so forth. But given that you've really understood what kind of residential pattern you'd like to have there in general, have you given thought to a planning agreement? And I thought that would come and be part of the planning proposal as to what are the community benefits, what you're going to give back to council and the community if this did go ahead. And usually that's at the forefront of being able to rezone these sites in order to provide benefits to the community in a broader scale. And I can see from the layout there's not much being given back from a physical perspective, so I'd be assuming you're going to be providing some kind of monetary contribution for upgrades and for infrastructure and for whatever the council kind of requires for the community. But I'd like to know a bit more of information around that because hasn't really been covered in the proposal.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I think certainly contributions and planning agreement of that nature, or as you've suggested there, could be part of the discussion and conversation with council in due course. I do want to kind of reflect back to the point that Annika made in her presentation that HarperCollins is not a land developer. The immediate premise and vision for this planning proposal, or what they're looking for on this site, was to see a way in which for this kind of medium term continue to operate on the site, but address what is the most orderly and efficient use of the land around it. So currently the C3 zone on the site is not compatible, does not support the existing warehouse use. So through our work with the planning proposal, we've really just focused on an exercise as to, well, what is the right appropriate land use, not detailed design or layout of the site, but what is the appropriate land use for the medium to long term on this site based on environmental considerations and utilities and services. And this site has a unique opportunity that it has kind of been validated, especially from council, unlike some projects of this nature whereby water and sewer, for instance, are the first roadblock, that there is capacity in those services. So in a roundabout way, and not ignoring and not deterring away from your question there, I think what we're focused on at the moment is just the land use, setting up a development control plan that does protect the environmental issues at the site and the challenges that it faces. But I think a reality here is that someone else would probably come and develop the surplus land at its rezoning phase. There would be the contributions plans in play on this site, but certainly the introduction of, park or recreation or connecting cycle routes so that they could be connected to the Ashbourne estate and further up to the Mossvale town centre would all be part of that and potentially part of a planning agreement or works in kind. But to date, I just advise the panel that we haven't had an open conversation with council about planning agreements, and nor has that been necessarily something forced upon us at this stage, but certainly open to discussing that and resolving that as part of going forward.
Just on that, no, I think it has to form part of this planning proposal if you want to proceed with it, in the sense that you can't get a rezoning from a land use that's not viable to a very viable land use without providing something back to the community. And that really should have been provided as part of this planning proposal. I understand there's a lot of investigative works that you still have to do, and there's probably going to be changes to the design and things, but I think there needs to be some public benefit if, council is to consider rezoning and upzoning this and giving you uplift and giving whether it's yourselves or whether it's a future developer to redevelop the site, there needs to definitely be that, and you need to consider that if it's not physical works, monetary contributions that will then go towards certain facilities and things. I think that's very important, particularly if you know you're going to have 500 or how many lots on this. The contributions are separate to that. That's an inevitable, and that's part of any development. So I think you need to give that some considerable thought, as well as, for me, the design is problematic and it needs to be refined, and it needs to show really high quality urban design outcome, which I think is really struggling, particularly when you've got a light industrial use on the site. And I'm not taking that away. I think you can design around it, but it's got to be really skillful and clever to create a nice, a community there if it is to go to a residential use. So I suppose that's all I want to kind of add to the discussion at this point.
Noted and acknowledged, and I think I won't be at liberty to negotiate a planning agreement in this forum, and I don't think the panel's probably expecting us to, but we take that on point, and I think we can consider, even if it's a letter of offer consideration or the like, we'll take that on note. Thank you.
Thanks very much. There are a number of unresolved matters, and they're set out in the recommendation. So there is work to be done in terms of fine-tuning subdivision plan and layout, etc. I think that's appropriate and necessary, not just the use of the land, but the layout of the road system and the configuration of lots and the relationship to the adjoining development. So I'll leave it at that. I do have two other names, Ian Scandrett, wishing to speak. Is there an Ian Scandrett? Will you come forward, please, in front of the microphone? And just introduce yourself and help us understand your interest in this matter. Yes, please, take a seat. There's a button in front of you that switches the microphone on. So if you can just, introduce yourself, tell us what your interest is in this matter.
My name is Alan Hunt. I came here today with Ian Scandrett, who alerted me about this development because I knew nothing about it. I live at 140 Yarrawa Road, and if you do a quick calculation, that's, I did it on here, it's 1.03 kilometres from this development, and it's a substantial development, and yet we as neighbours and people who are going to be affected by this development have had no notification at all about it until it was brought to my attention only yesterday. What I'd be calling for straight away is a total deferment of this and publicity so that people who live in the area and are going to be affected by this development can have some consideration.
So just before you go on,
yes,
it's not a development at this stage. It's a planning proposal.
Okay, well,
so
let's call it a planning proposal.
Can I finish speaking? You need to understand the distinction between a planning proposal, which is to do with the rezoning of the land, and a development application. So it hasn't been publicly notified because it's not a development application yet.
Well, okay. Can I just
thank you. Just wanted to
state my previous claims and still suggest that as a planning proposal that consideration of it be deferred, if I can put it that way. The thing's a disaster, to be quite honest. We've put up with Ashbourne for the last 10 years, and it is in the period of time that they've been there, they've only developed 1/4 of the lots of land. Now, people are sort of saying, oh, we're desperate for housing. Ashbourne can't sell housing lots. And they're building some housing lots, but they're only working on about 1/4 of the approved lots. They've had major issues with sewerage. I don't know whether that's even been resolved at this point in time. Access to the site in Ashbourne is going to be the same as what would be here. And I'm disturbed to actually think that they're going to be increasing the size or proposing to increase the size of their warehousing activities because they use B-double trucks to come in and out of that site. The road in front of it there is always being churned up. Mr Fitzpatrick must be loving the fact that he's got to redo the roads there quite often. It affects all the traffic, and Ashbourne's put in the craziest roundabout that's ever been designed, and that's been commented about in the press when we did have a press. So Ashbourne is really very difficult, and I see the same difficulties appearing with this development.
Can you just conclude now, please? There might be some questions from the panel for you.
Look, I just think it has not been given consideration in relation to the residential amenity in that sort of area. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, before I throw to the panel, I just observed that the panel's very concerned about residential amenity and the possibility of conflicts with greater proximity of residential development to industrial development. This is a planning proposal that's in the very early stages of consideration for a possible rezoning of the land.
Yeah.
So we want to be sure about all of the things that flow from that, residential impacts, biodiversity impacts.
I'm certain if others in our area had have known about it, you would have had a lot more people here. As I said,
It'll go on public exhibition at the appropriate time. We don't think it's well enough resolved, if I can say so. I don't think it's well enough resolved at this point in time to go to public exhibition. But anyway, let's have some questions.
Well, that's all. That's all I was going to. That's all I was going to say. I was just going to explain that it's exactly what the chair said. Is it's not in a state yet to go on exhibition. Once it's at a state to go on exhibition, it'll go through that process. So it goes through the council considering the matter. And once they decide, yes, it can go to a planning proposal process, it goes to the state government. It goes through what they call a gateway process, and then they agree to it goes on exhibition. And at that stage, that's when it'll go on exhibition and you'll understand everything about it. So at this stage, it's not there yet.
Ashbourne over many, many years to, well, Ashbourne turned out to be a disaster. And,
sorry, I didn't have my microphone. Are there any other questions from the panel? Any questions? I did have Ian I did have you down, Mr. Hunt, but I had Ian Scandrett as well. Is he not here?
He's here.
Does he want to speak? Yes, okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you.
And could Mr. Scandrett please come forward and introduce himself and explain your interest in the matter, please?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Ian Scandrett. I'm a resident of Mount Broughton Road. I'm a former Deputy Mayor of this council. For 10 years, I've served on this council. And the issue of Ashbourne, as Mr. Hunt has pointed out, was knocked back 4 times until it was taken over by the Minister for Planning, who waved it through. And we now have massive issues with the load that's going to come from it, particularly on the Moss Vale Township, and it relates to the southern villages who come into Moss Vale as well. The load includes traffic, capacity for parking at the shops themselves, and so on. It's none of that's been really resolved. This development has, this planning proposal has the same capacity to interrupt the amenity of the area. Its initial benefit was that it was a buffer between town and rural. In fact, it sits on some of the best productive land for potatoes in this shire, and that was a concern with Ashbourne. Amenity in terms of facilities, drainage, sewerage, traffic. The roundabout there is an absolute disaster in design. This one will result in another roundabout proposal, and yet it's a rural road which is slowly being throttled. I concur with Mr Hunt, and that is the matter should be refused, but if not, at least deferred. The communication process has always been a concern of many in this shire, and this one went to an August meeting and was just waved through as a notification, as I recall. So I think the panel has already mentioned amenity. This is a big concern here. It's the zone between our rural lands, the 100-acre rural sits across that, and we're now talking about reducing it to 300-metre lots. It just doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Just
happy
hold
to
your
take
seat.
Questions.
Hold your seat for a moment, yes. Any questions for this speaker?
No.
No? Thank you. We hear what you say. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. And I should point out there is a lot of concern about capacity in our township at this point in time because a lot of the parking is about to be removed from the main streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the speakers for item 5.1. We'll move on to item 6.1, a development application DA 25/2022 for alterations and additions to an existing dwelling house for use as a childcare centre at 5 Farnborough Drive, Moss Vale. So I have a list of 11 speakers against the proposal and 1 speaker for. Can I start with Diane Riley speaking against the proposal? Can you introduce yourself, please, and tell us your interest in the matter? Are you a neighbour or nearby?
Hello, my name's Diane Riley. I live in 12 Windsor Crescent, Moss Vale. This DA is not in the interest of the public or public safety. I'm wondering why we're at this point when I read it says prohibited uses of R5 zone restricts various activities to maintain the residential character, including prohibiting commercial premises. 5 Farnborough Drive is at the gateway of the Tudor estate outside of the town centre without pedestrian connectivity to local shops or businesses. The wrong location for a commercial premises. Over 90 written objections have been submitted to council, and here are some of the real life problems. Public safety. Whilst the DA does have 33 parking allocations, in reality, we know that won't be used. We know that parents will be in a hurry and they'll park on the street to alleviate having to do battle in the car park with tandem parking spaces where you'll have to wait for who's parked you in to keep going. There are 2 blind corners in the section of Farnborough, nowhere to turn around safely, 2 school buses during peak times. The risk of harm to parents, children and residents is huge. How can you risk public safety by agreeing to this DA? Public transport availability is a requirement for a commercial premises according to the rules. Where is the bus stop on the Illawarra Highway? I quote from the information of 6.1, page 53. It is around the corner from 5 Farnborough. Not signposted, no access apart from walking on the road, and as you walk on that road, you'll enter the 80 kilometre an hour zone of the highway. How can you risk public safety by ticking the public transport availability box as being met? The acoustic fencing, 2 metres high. Small children in childcare, people and cars make noise. No sound restricting fencing will keep all of this in check. 2 local real estate agents suggested that the neighbours of 5 Farnborough will have their properties devalued by at least 10%. They also mentioned the very real safety issues of this location. So, members of the panel, would you see a commercial business as your next door neighbour in your residential area in your best interest? This interest is only served in the best interest to the actual applicant, asking you to agree to a prohibited commercial premises in a residential area. With all this in mind, you have to decline this application in the interest of public safety and the lack of adherence to the zoning restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Panel, are there any questions of this speaker?
Are you an adjoining owner?
I'm not an adjoining home, but it's the gateway to the Tudor estate, so going in and out of the estate, there's only one road, and so all of us have to use that location to get in and out of our homes.
Any other questions of this speaker? Now, I should just clarify, with the greatest respect, ma'am, it's not prohibited, it's permissible in the zone.
When I read that, I read it to say it was home-based childcare, and home-based childcare is a relative minding 5 children at
I understand what home-based childcare is.
Yeah.
Childcare centres are permissible in the zone. You consider it to be commercial. It's not. It is separately defined for the purposes of land use in the zone. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. It's not prohibited. It is not unlawful for this application to be made.
Okay. When I read through some of your
If it was prohibited, we
information.
wouldn't be sitting here talking about it.
Oh, that's what I wondered, why we were sitting here talking about it. But thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
righto,
for
thank you.
clarifying that.
Second speaker, Gilda Wilson. Is Gilda Wilson here, and could you come forward? Introduce yourself, please, and tell us your interest in the application.
My name is Gilda Wilson, and I live in 17 Nari, which is not directly off Farnborough, but close enough. Anyway, I wanted to first of all thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I hope you don't mind me reading my notes. I have lived in the Throsby estate for about 10 years plus. I object to the childcare at Farnborough for the following reasons. Being between 2 bends of approximately 90 degrees and within a short distance of approximately 100 meters of each other increases the danger with unforeseen traffic, turning, and people crossing the road. The functionality of the proposed location is not fit for purpose. This project is approximately 150 meters from the access and egress to Farnborough Drive of the Illawarra Highway. This further supports the inappropriateness of this location. Future releases of land for development will add to the traffic congestion and indeed other areas around Farnborough Drive. We are not against childcare centres, providing their location are fit for purpose. I'm fully aware of the need for them. Now, if this council is determined to have the facility within the Farnborough precinct, then council should be compelled to search for safer location and probably a vacant block of land. In closing, if you choose to approve the project, you are in effect telling us that where we chose to live has no value to you, the council, and means nothing. You will be responsible for permanently destroying the peaceful feel of Farnborough Drive and our entire estate by way of traffic congestion. Traffic and pedestrian safety, noise, exterior fencing and lighting, to name just some. In addition, the depreciation in property values in the immediate vicinity. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold your seat for a moment. Are there any questions from the panel? No, no questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on to Kerry Paskey. Kerry sends her apologies. Well, she's not able to attend? Okay. Okay. Next I have Pamela Hilton. Is Pamela Hilton here? Come forward, please. Now, I gather you're a neighbour, an adjoining neighbour, is that correct? Yes.
Am I not permitted to speak?
Yes, no, you're certainly very interested. We're interested to hear from you. So, yeah, I've got you down at 4 Farnborough. Was that to the left or the right as you look at the...
It's on the left-hand side,
look
coming into Farnborough. It's the second property on the left.
So if you're standing in front of the property and you're looking at it, you're on the left or the right?
Yes, we're on the left.
Okay.
The development is on
Got
the
it.
right.
Okay, please proceed. Thanks very much.
My name is Pam Hilton, and my husband John and I live at number 4 Farnborough Drive. Some of the things I'm going to say are reiterating what has been said, but I feel I have a unique position where we are. My major concern about the development is that of road safety. Just down from us, in front of number 3, there's a bend in the road. Reference is made to page 39 of the agenda, figure 1, which is an aerial image showing that Farnborough Drive bends in an S. There is one before number 7, and the one on the opposite side of the road from us is number 3. Visibility of vehicles coming along Farnborough to our left when exiting our property is extremely limited, as is vehicles turning into Farnborough Drive from the highway to our right. There's only one entry to this estate from the Illawarra Highway. There may be a clear line of sight quoted in the agenda papers on 52 and 53, immediately in front of the development, but that line of sight is changed by the bends immediately to the left and the right of the property. The rest of Farnborough Drive is extremely straight, and vehicles tend to build up speed coming to those bends. The vehicles exiting the centre will not have a clear view of what's coming from the right. The proposed childcare centre will have one exit and entrance for vehicles, which appears to be only one way. The documentation from council allows 10 minutes per vehicle to park, take children into the centre and then exit. And there are to be 20 car spaces for those visitors. The centre is to cater for 80 places. There would be at least 40 cars entering and exiting this centre around a similar time in the morning and evening. There's a stated allowance of 10 minutes per vehicle. We believe there will be a build-up of cars waiting to enter and exit, which waiting vehicles will possibly park on the narrow street or wait in line on the street. There's only one entrance to Farnborough Estate from the Illawarra Highway, with only a short distance to the childcare centre from the highway. These cars will emit pollution waiting to enter and exit on the street, and there'll be noise from the cars waiting and from the cars parking and exiting. Our property is the second on the left entering Farnborough Drive, so that all these cars will have to pass our property or possibly queue waiting to access the centre. Noise studies shown on Sidra intersection analysis page 52 have been done according to the application for the development, that say while an increase in traffic and therefore road noise is expected, the impact will not be undue or unreasonable, considering the site's proximity to the Illawarra Highway, which Council concurs with. The noise of children will not be the issue, it'll be the noise and emissions of the additional traffic. This centre will not be accessible by public transport. I note in Council's response to the many objections raised that there is supposed to be a bus route on the Illawarra Highway, page 53 of the agenda. I have no knowledge of this and have not seen such a bus service. There is a bus service for school children. There are no bus stops on the Illawarra Highway, I imagine for safety purposes, because there's nowhere that a bus can safely stop and allow passengers to get on or off a bus. It's stated in Council's document, page 92, there is an existing bus stop serviced in the morning and evening within 900 metres on the Illawarra Highway. Page 53 states no bus stops directly address the site. However, there are 2 bus routes that travel down and stop along the Illawarra Highway during peak hours, approximately 800 metres from the site. A passenger, presumably with young children in tow, would have to negotiate the Illawarra Highway with no walking area to get to this centre without a private vehicle. This near 1 kilometre walk would be with young children.
Okay,
My
you've
concern is
gone
also
over-
for the immediate
Can you wind up your
neighbours.
talk, please? You have gone over the 3 minutes. Would you please conclude what you have to say, and then we'll see if there's some questions for you.
I don't have any questions. I
No,
have a statement.
We will have the questions.
Okay.
We may have the questions.
All right.
But you need to conclude your talk.
Yes,
You
I'm
had more than
concluding.
3 minutes. That was a, sorry for the noise, but it was a 3-minute warning. So please conclude your talk.
Okay. My concern is for the immediate neighbours of this change of use and the detrimental effect it will have on them. I do not believe the development is to meet community needs. It is a business expecting to make a profit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, just hold your seat for a minute, and we'll just see if there's any questions. I think there may be a question from Stephen Leith.
Yes, certainly. Thanks for your presentation, Pam. As an adjoining owner, certainly interested in what you have to say, hear what you say about traffic. You'll see that's been comprehensively addressed in the council assessment report. Hear what you say about public transport as well, although that's unlikely to be a determinative matter in relation to this application. Question I have for you is, as an adjoining owner, understand traffic, what other specific impacts are you concerned about in relation to this application on your enjoyment of your property?
The traffic.
So,
There's going
excuse me,
to be-
before, was that, are you an adjoining owner or across the road from the site?
Across the road.
Across the road. Sorry.
Oh, so you're not an
She's
adjoining
on the other
owner.
side of the road. Yeah, we're wondering
you
if
said
you
you were
had...
on
We're
the
in
left
number
hand.
4, across the road's number 3, and then there's number 5.
Yeah, so they're
So
on
we're-
opposite sides of the road.
You said you were to the left of the property.
I beg your pardon?
You said you were to the left of this property.
I was trying...
No, the chairman said I was an adjoining property, and I assumed he meant that I was in the vicinity.
Sorry.
So you don't think that that traffic would affect me?
No, I'm interested in what the impacts are on the adjoining owner. That's what I was assuming you were an adjoining owner. So if you're an adjoining owner, I wanted to know what other impacts there would be
But
from
the
you.
impact will be on everybody surrounding that property.
Yeah, but the impacts on someone adjoining when you're actually living next door to it are
Yes,
different
it
to
will,
other
and
people.
I've-
I assumed you were someone who lived next
I
door
have
to it,
empathy
so I was
for those
asking,
people.
and I was asking what the issues were in
Yes.
relation to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Thanks very much. I beg your pardon? Sorry?
I'm an adjoining owner, if you would like to.
What's your name, sir?
John Russ.
I don't have you on the list here, but I'm happy to hear from you.
No, I wasn't there, it's just that you seem to be concerned to speak to.
Well, we are. I did have Michelle Carlin next on the list, but if she's happy to wait a little while, come forward, please. sir, and just introduce yourself again, please, and tell us, you're next door on which side?
As you face the development on the right-hand side.
As you face the development on the right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Well, we might be interested in your views on certain things, but please, if you've got something to say, will you say it now, and then we'll see if there's any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
For me, the John Rusden, R-U-S-D-E-N. Yep. Particular to number 3 and number 7 would be the proposals to alleviate noise by an acoustic fence on the boundary and to comply with the Building Code of Australia in respect of lighting. There would need to be pole-mounted fittings, and that's going to completely wreck the ambience of what people enjoy, quiet enjoyment of their property on 3 and 7. We're also concerned about property valuation, and so I was interested to see someone said an agent has confirmed that that would be the case. The acoustic issues have been nominated as being addressable by adding things on later. I worked as a consulting engineer in Canberra and Melbourne. I was a director of the firm for over 40 years. I know a fair bit about lighting, about noise from mechanical services, and about how you go about designing acoustically. What's put forward in that report is a patch-up. If we get a problem with the job, oh, we'll add an acoustic fence, oh, we'll do this. Proper design would see not split system air conditionings, but a VRV system with variable speed drive on the compressors and fans, and appropriate logic to keep the noise level down. In my experience, coming along later and trying to fix those problems never works. I'm sorry I had not intended to speak, so I'll probably, unless you've got any questions of me.
I think there is a question for you.
Yes, and thanks for coming forward and speaking as an adjoining owner. I was certainly interested in what you have to say, and the 2 metre high acoustic fence along your boundary and the boundary on the other side.
Yes.
I'm just interested to know your views specifically on that issue, and then I might press you more on that.
Okay. From what I could see, the written proposal depends on a level site, that number 5 is on a similar level to number 3. Actually, number 3 sits up quite high. I would welcome you to come and visit me, and I could show you the difference, but we have bedrooms that would be, that would need, I estimate, something closer to 4 metres high. The product proposed can't actually do that, but we sit up. Noise needs a dense barrier directly between the source and the affected area, and this noise would go straight over the 2 metre fence and rattle our windows. To provide double glazing doesn't work because we then can't use the windows for ventilation.
What about just the amenity of having a 2 metre high fence along your property boundary? At the moment, we've been out to the site and noticed that it's porous. There's landscaping and vegetation, and actually putting a 2 metre high fence along there and the other property. I'm interested in your view on that.
I do encourage anyone to come and visit, and I'll show you. But a bit embarrassed talking about money costs, but this is my only chance. When we moved in, we left Canberra. I said we're going back to live in Australia, and it's been a lovely experience. But I think, sorry, I'm just lost my train of thought for a second. What particularly want me to?
Just like putting a 2 metre high fence,
Yeah.
acoustic fence along your boundary.
I think.
Are you concerned about that?
What I was going to say was.
And is there another option? You've
Yep.
obviously worked to understand this area. Is there another option you would prefer to see?
Yep. Just to go back to what you said at the start, when we moved here, we wanted to develop a garden. We had a garden in Canberra that was open to the public for various parts of the year, and we've tried to create another even better garden. We had a landscape architect design it, Angus Gordon, and we would have spent probably far too much money, but approaching $200,000. So, and the post and rail fencing was very much a part of that. So to now see, oh no, forget post and rail fencing, we've got an acoustic problem, we'll bung a 2 metre high fence. It would feel a bit like having a prison next to you compared to the other residences around the street.
That was all I wanted to press you on that. Just in relation to your point on property values, it's not a consideration in a planning matter. It's not something that we as a panel can take into consideration. I hear what you say. I hear what you're saying. I do, as a person, sympathise with what you're saying.
Yes.
But it's not something as a panel we can take into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Risden? There is another question.
Mr. Rusden, I live in the area in Burrowang, and I've been living here for 9 years.
Yes.
One of the things I'd just be interested in understanding is what type of noise do you get from Tudor House, from the King's School, during the course of the day?
Okay.
Is there any impact on anybody when the kids are back at school?
There is occasionally kids playing. So I've found, I had the number of kids at Tudor House in the back of my mind, but it's not that many, and it's spread over.
There's about 140 now.
That sounds right, and it's spread over a large acreage. So not every day of the week, but occasionally, here the kids are here playing. The worst noise would probably be on a Saturday morning when the parents yell at their children to perform at a higher level. And other than that, it's something we've come to live with. But I guess it's like we knew when we bought into it, okay, there's a school there. If this goes ahead, I have no neighbour anymore. I've got the childcare centre on one side and a Tudor House on the other. I can always cross the road and talk to number 4, I guess. But that's my answer. Thank you. Okay. And,
11 speakers here.
I'm on number 7. I'm on the other side of the bed. And I back on the story as well.
Come forward, please, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name's Helen Coventry. My husband John and I live in 7 Farnborough Drive. We back onto the playing fields of Tudor House School. It is a nice noise as far as we're concerned because the children up there playing, it's usually their sports day. We have had problems with some parents, but not very much. The most noise we get from Tudor House really is if they have a carnival or anything, and they've virtually got parents and children out there. But it's not, it's one day. It's not anything that's, you know, it's quite pleasant as far as we're concerned. The children are having fun, they're all enjoying themselves. So Tudor House has never been a problem. We have had a problem with number 5 and the school, because of the flow of the land, we used to get flooded quite drastically, and we had to put a lot of drainage on our property. Tudor House addressed it. Number 5, it's never been addressed, it's always been dismissed. And we're hoping, I mean, the only good thing we can see in this development is if it goes through, that problem might be addressed. But that's it. Okay, so that's for your question. I've jumped around. I've basically agreed with what the earlier speakers have said. But we're concerned because we will actually have the parking lot. The driveway in and the parking lot will be adjacent to our bedroom and also our outdoor barbecue area. We're concerned about the noise. We don't think the acoustic fence is going to solve our problems because it slopes down at the front to a lower level, and we're still going to have the cars coming up the driveway at that lower level. So we see that as a problem. We're concerned about the 20 car spots that are allowed in the property. We think it looks good on paper, but whether it's practical or not, we don't think it is. We think we'll end up with cars out on the street, which is going to make it very difficult. In relation to the bend in the road to our right, when we exit our driveway, we can't really see the cars until they hit the bend. Now, the 2 driveways will virtually be side by side. So number 5 might have a better sight line than us. But we have to look across the road through the neighbour's property, and luckily they've left a space in their tree planting, and we've got a gap that we can actually see the cars coming up towards the bend from the other direction. So that's where we look first, and if that's clear, we then make sure there's nothing on the bend and we exit. So we see that as a problem. We also see the number of vehicles coming into the site next door, because with 80 children, they're coming in twice a day, and that's like dozens of cars coming in, because as it's been pointed out, there's no public transport out there. So these children are all going to have to be brought in. Sorry, can I just say, I'll say a few other things, seeing I was answering the gentleman's questions, if that's all right.
Please, yes, please proceed, but try and...
Yeah, sorry. One of our major concerns is safety for everybody in the area. And we spoke to the childcare about this too, and they said, you know, you've got to protect the children in the site, and we believe in that. One of our concerns is Farnborough Drive goes down further, and there are lots of roads come onto it. There is only one way in and one way out of Farnborough Drive. We have a major concern, well, I shouldn't say mate, we have a concern that if we ever have to be evacuated out of Farnborough Drive, there's only one road out, and there's over probably 300 houses down there. Plus, if you put the childcare centre, we've got that as well. So we've only got one escape route. And getting out onto the Illawarra Highway, it's 80 kilometres an hour, which something's got to be done to address that if the childcare centre, well, it should be done anyway. But we really think that should, whoever does it, it should be taken down to a lower level of speed there, because if you're trying to get in and out of there, basically coming out, we can end up with a roadblock if people are trying to go off to the left and they can't get out because people are coming that way. We can't get out because, you know, the opposite direction. But the road is a major concern, and sometimes if council keeps putting housing developments in there with more people, it's only going to get worse until they get a second exit out of that area. With one exit, it is a total disaster, and as I've just said, if we had to be evacuated, it would be absolutely chaotic. So I think I'm over my time.
You are.
So,
Just hold your seat for a minute. Are there any questions of this speaker?
Sorry to ask you, so when you were talking about the problems of leaving your site when you're driving out, I'm assuming you're exiting from, you're not going forward, you're
I'm driving
reversing.
forward. We've got a very large driveway.
Yeah.
That you come in. We've got a 3-car garage.
Yep.
And the drive goes round so that you can get into either one of those, any of those garages from the driveway.
Okay.
And the people before us built that house, I think, so that we could turn around. People here, we had to put a gate on. When we moved here, there was no fences and no gates, right? We've been here for 20 years. We've had to put a gate on our property because people coming into Farnborough Drive that may be going to drop the post, not the post, I shouldn't say parcels, can't turn around in Farnborough Drive, and they were driving into our driveway and using it as a turnaround circle. Mm-hmm. And after we had the gate put in, somebody followed my husband in one day and he shut the gate on them. And their comment was, I can't get out. And he said, well, what are you in here for? Have you come to see me? And the chap said, no. And my husband was like, well, you're just going to have to wait. I've got to take the dogs into the house. He walks the dogs. He said, I've got to get the dogs into the house first. You can wait. So, I mean, it's going to be, it's just a nightmare.
So you leaving in a forward direction?
We always leave in a forward direction.
Okay.
And as I said, I get out as far as I can out of our property.
Yeah.
Shut the gate, and I can look to the right. I can see what's coming around the bend, but I always check the gap in the trees and check before I pull out.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that's all. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Now, perhaps we can get back to Michelle Carlin. Thank you for waiting so patiently.
Okay.
Tell us, introduce yourself, please, and tell us where you are. Yeah.
I'm Michelle Carlin. We live in 2 Norwich Circuit. I used to work for Think Childcare and launch a lot of centres, so I understand everything that's involved in that. However, I've got 3 minutes, so I'll get straight to the point. Yep. The traffic report does not fully account for real-world factors, and I'd like to approach it a little bit differently. Imagine we're heading along Illawarra Highway from Mossvale. You get on it, it's 50k, 60k past the high school, then it goes into 80. And anyone that's driven up there, everyone's hitting 80. We go over 2 hills before we hit Farnborough. The second hill, we come in, because I do this every day, and then I've got a little side road I can turn left in, and because I'm going 80, especially if there's someone behind me going 80, I've got to slow down really fast and get in that corner. So I do that. And if they've got a car park for 20, how many people are they expecting at once? If there's 5 people banked up and someone's coming over that hill at 80, that's an issue. So you come in, it's a blind corner, there's never been anyone parked, or I've never had to stop. But if I come around that corner, coming off a highway and have to stop all of a sudden, that's a challenge. It is only one lane on either side, and like the other speakers have said, you can't turn around. So that's that side. That side is almost the good side. The other side of the road, you're coming from Robertson. And this happened to us just the other day. We had a video, but I don't have enough time to show you the video. Literally one car will stop the Illawarra Highway turning into Farnborough. One car. And when they've got so many more coming in as well, it's so much harder for them to turn right in. So what do? Like they did the other day to us, they jumped in front of us. When we were just about to turn, they came in. The person was trying to get around them. You know, I mean, the council knows that major connector roads with speed limits of 80 kilometres per hour with no turning lane is dangerous. Hence, the road works on Bong Bong Road to build a bypass lane happening right now. So that is a major issue going in and out. The fact that there is only one entrance for us in and out, it just worries every resident there. What if somebody needs an ambulance? There's so many things that can go wrong. But I really think the dangers on Illawarra Highway with people turning in and then turning out at those key times is a major issue. And I won't even mention the ducks on Farnborough Road. I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Right, hold your seat for a minute, please. Do we have a question for? Okay. No questions? Thank you. I have Susan Ingram next on my list. Susan Ingram, come forward, please. Take a seat. Introduce yourself, please, and tell us what your interest is in this matter.
Susan Ingram. I live at 15 Nari Circuit. My concern is for the traffic congestion, the S-bend, the poorly built road. I agree with everything that has been said before. We have lived there since 1990. The Illawarra Highway was a 100-kilometre zone. When we moved there, and there were only about 12 houses in the area, it was always a problem getting out, because by the time you'd headed into Moss Vale, there were cars doing 100 kilometres an hour behind you, and you could hardly get to the top of the hill without somebody running up the back of you. So we agitated early on, and we had the limit reduced to 80, which was an improvement. But I have nothing further to add other than it is in a very bad position. We agree with daycare centres. It's the position that is the problem.
Thank you.
Thank
Before you go, are there any questions?
No. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Robert Bosler. Mr. Bosler, please come forward. Introduce yourself and tell us your interest in the matter.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Robert Bosler. I live at number 5 Woodside Drive, which is one of the roads that feeds into Farnborough Drive, all of which rely on that intersection with Illawarra Highway for access to their properties. I'll try and pick out the key points from my presentation, which I believe you have copies of. Is that correct? Do you have copies of my presentation, as I was informed by the council?
Yes, we have.
Okay, well, I'll
reported on, and yeah.
Thank you. I'll refer to slides as I make these comments. Key point is we support the provision of additional childcare facilities in Windsor Carriby. However, the location needs to be appropriate. Our contention is this location is not appropriate. My primary concerns that I'll mention today relate to transparency of process, incomplete information, and transport access issues and safety risks you've heard a lot about already. There are other locations in Windsor Carriby that would be suitable for a facility like this, and they're worthy of further investigation. Transparency and incomplete information. There have been 3 rounds of correspondence between the council and the applicant that we haven't seen. Notably, there's key documents referenced in the assessment report that we haven't seen. The updated Transport Management Plan, the intersection analysis, these are all things that the assessment report relies on, and I haven't managed to find them. Publishing the relevant documents would provide clarity as to what the assessment report is based on and inform consideration and a decision. Importantly, proposed conditions of development consent, which were referenced in the document as being in attachment 1, weren't included with the report initially when it was released for this meeting, nor at the time of me submitting this proposal for this panel meeting. However, it is now available, magically, in the last 24 hours. That attachment is 41 pages long. I've not had time to look at it, and I doubt very much the panel's had time to look at it. And given the volume of information and the importance of that information, how can an informed decision be made today on that matter? Transport and access and safety issues. Equity with this proposal is a concern. People that rely on public transport or that would want to otherwise walk to this facility can't. There is no viable public transport options, there are no footpaths, and in some cases, safe pedestrian access is all but impossible, e.g. Illawarra Highway, but people have already mentioned some of those problems. It would be particularly difficult for a person with a pram to negotiate any of these places. Page 93 of the document claims that, among other things, congestion in the street will not be a problem, quote unquote. How can we have confidence in this and other traffic-related claims when we have not had an opportunity to review the updated transport management plan or the intersection analysis? Farnborough Drive intersection with Illawarra Highway. People have mentioned it's the only access point for over 200 properties. The highway is currently 80 kilometres an hour at that intersection. People have mentioned the slip lane for cars turning left into Farnborough. I'll be quick. That's recently been reduced in width during recent road resurfacing. It should be expanded so cars turning left can actually get out of the way of the high-speed traffic coming up behind them. Vehicles turning right off the highway, people have been told that that blocks all the traffic behind while they wait to turn. Also, exiting Farnborough Drive to the highway is problematic at the moment, with multiple cars queuing up in busy times, and that's only going to increase under this proposal. I won't go into the parking because that's been commented on, but if you look at my submission, you'll find 5 pictures showing an example of what will happen when the real world arrives and you have cars parking in the street. Through traffic, we'll have to go across the middle of the road to get past cars that are parked on either side of that street, and that's a risk. Putting some no stopping signs in on both sides might deter that behaviour. Won't guarantee it doesn't happen, but it does provide some enforcement basis if there's a problem. There's also a risk that cars that park on the street will block sight for people trying to exit the facility, as has already been mentioned. More parking controls of that type would reduce the risks of vehicle accidents and or injury to pedestrians and or people trying to cross the street with their children. So in conclusion, we are opposed to the proposal and ask that it be rejected. However, if the panel decides against rejecting the proposal, then they could either defer a decision pending publication and consultation on all the relevant documentation so that they and the community are fully informed, then reconsideration at a subsequent meeting, or approve the DA, which we wouldn't be keen on, but subject to additional requirements or conditions as indicated on the slide. And just to run through those, it would be to publish the information, install no stopping signs, increase the slip lane width at Illawarra Highway, increase the width of the highway to allow right-hand turns off the highway, and reduce the speed limit off the highway. Thanks for your time and your consideration of the community's concerns.
Thank you very much. Just hold your seat for a moment.
Can I just say I'm disappointed the presentation wasn't up on the screen because the pictures of the cars in the street are very telling.
I've seen those pictures. They came fairly late, that submission, last day.
It was on time.
Came late to me. I don't know what about that.
Okay.
And I have seen it and read it, and I know the pictures you're talking about. So, any questions? Panel? Do we have yes, we have a question from the panel.
Look, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. I did read it and I did look through those photographs. So the photographs that you have, the 5 photographs that you have, depict traffic coming towards Illawarra Highway and
correct,
and traffic and cars coming back from Illawarra Highway into Farnworth.
No, it's only one way. It was fortuitous when I was there with 2 cars parked on either side of the street that some outgoing traffic that were heading towards the Illawarra Highway came through. It wasn't planned or anything. They just came through and I said, oh, I'll take a picture of that. So
and what's the position of the 2 stationary cars?
they're on either side of Farnborough Drive.
At what point? So there's
outside number 5. And adjacent to each other. Now, that won't necessarily always happen that way, but it can happen that way. And even if they're not adjacent to each other, there'll still be a problem of getting around each car, which is going to force passing traffic over the middle of the road. So it's a real concern. And if people are stopping on the opposite side of Farnborough Drive to take their children from their car across the road into the facility, they'll be crossing the road while cars are coming around the corner, and all sorts of mayhem can happen.
That's a good point. No, thank you very much. That's all, Chair.
That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next I have Meredith Russ. We don't have an address for you. Could you just introduce yourself?
I'm Meredith Roos and I live at 1 Farnborough Drive, which is on the corner of Illawarra Highway and Farnborough Drive. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't dispute that there is a need for additional childcare facilities in the Southern Highlands, but with close to 100 submissions from 86 separate residences opposing this development and only one of support, I would have thought the location would not be suitable. We chose to live in Farnborough for what it offered, large semi-rural residential blocks and green space, and we are concerned that the goalposts are shifting and that decisions are being based on whether the boxes on various bits of paper are being ticked. This seems to be a major flaw in the development process. Things can look great on paper, but paper doesn't live in the community and paper does not live with consequences. Surely 100 objections should instigate an open discussion between applicants, council and the Farnborough community. John has spoken to the acoustic issues, and I can tell you that a 2-metre acoustic fence doesn't work. How would I know? I have a 2-metre solid timber fence on my Illawarra Highway border. If you want to know how effective it is, come over and have a look. Many of the residents nearby, or live nearby, are over 50. We're retired or semi-retired, and we spend more time at home during normal business hours and will be more affected by the noise. The sounds of children laughing and playing is joyous, but 80 of them, maybe not so much. The proposed facility is almost double the capacity of the one in Mittagong, and a neighbour there has stated that living next door to it is an absolute nightmare. There are lessons that could be learned and applied to this and future developments, but it requires a conversation. Traffic movements are grossly underestimated in the report. They said 65 movements in the morning and 65 in the evening, but they forgot to account for the fact that people have dropped off their kids and then have to leave. So the movements have actually doubled. It's 130 in the morning and 130 in the evening on top of the normal regular traffic. Future planning for commercial interests needs to be adequately accounted for in new land releases, giving buyers open disclosure and informed choice at the time of purchase. And they don't have to worry about shifting goalposts because seriously, no one has ever said, I want to live next to a large childcare facility. Residents always have two choices. They can stay and put up with the issues that a tick box on a piece of paper may have got wrong, or sell and move. But it raises an important question. Could an open conversation between all parties result in a scenario that is acceptable to all? If the proposal is granted now, there is no going back, and you're essentially saying that we as residents have no value compared to a commercial venture. We need to talk. Thank you.
Hold your seat for a minute, please. Are there any questions for this lady? Any questions? No. Just to clarify before you go, you're not directly affected by this noise, are you?
I'm sorry, I'm hearing
You're
you.
not directly affected by the noise from the 80 kiddies running around because you're separated by a property or two. Is that
Could
right?
you lift your voice up so I could lip read a bit?
I will. I hope I don't speak too loudly. Is that okay? Can everybody hear me now? Yes. I don't want to yell at you, but You're not next door to this. You're a couple of properties away, correct?
I'm 2 houses away from the property, but I live on the corner.
Yeah, so you're not directly affected by the child noise.
Well, I don't know if
I'm
noise
asking
would be an issue for me from the actual centre,
Yeah.
but the issues of traffic are certainly an issue for
Traffic,
me.
yes,
Getting
yes.
in and out of my driveway will
Yep.
be an issue.
Yep. Okay.
And getting possibly collected as I come into Farnborough Drive, put on my indicator to go into my driveway, and having someone coming up behind
Yep.
me and rear-ending me could definitely be an issue. And I have to back out of my driveway because it's only one way in. I can't go forward.
All right, thank you.
No worries.
Now, I'll try and speak a little more loudly. I hope it's not too loud. Paul Robertson. Come forward, please, Mr. Robertson, and introduce yourself and tell us your interest in this matter.
Thank you. My name's Paul Robertson. I live in Woodside Drive, which is off Farnborough. Interesting, perfect timing, thank you. I can guarantee that you will hear the children that are 2 doors away. We're about a kilometre away from Tudor House, and certain times you can hear the kids from Tudor House out the back of the property doing whatever they do, exploring and the like. It's not excessive, it's not a problem, but noise does travel. So the fact that she's not necessarily next door doesn't mean that the noise won't travel. Anyway, that wasn't what I came to talk about. I was going to talk about 2 things. First of all, where this doesn't meet the state childcare planning guidelines, but I think that's been covered in terms of the suitability of the site. What I did want to talk about that I think is unique, albeit on the topic of traffic, is yesterday I took the time to go to Mittagong and to have a look at the childcare centre that's run by these people there. And as was pointed out, it's about 40% the size, in that it has 50 kids instead of 80. I spent half an hour outside watching the traffic flow. And what I saw was when I arrived at 8 o'clock that there were cars parked outside the centre. Those cars didn't move during my time there, so they could either be residents or I got the feeling that they were more likely to be staff because there was no staff car parking in the facility. When I saw the parents coming, yes, the issues that pointed out in Bob's photos of the cars having to go into the centre, because there were cars parked on both sides, there was cars parked in the centre. I saw a car coming out of the facility and a car coming down the road had to take evasive action basically because of the way the car had to come out to navigate the parked cars. So it was a real issue. The differences between the 2 centres is quite striking though. Although the road sizes are similar, as I've mentioned, that the one in Farnborough, the centre in Farnborough is going to be for 80 kids and have, as was pointed out, 130 traffic movements in the morning and 130 in the evening. The road at Mittagong doesn't service 206 or more, an increasing number of residents. So it's just in a little side street that runs off the old highway that does have a right-hand turn lane where you can safely pull aside in an 80-kilometre zone and turn right into it and then drive down, and then you can do a left and another left and come up to a set of lights. That set of lights allows you then back onto the highway either to turn left or right safely. We don't have such a set of lights at Farnborough Drive, and quite frankly, I would hate to see a set of lights at Farnborough Drive, and I'm sure that the trucks that drive up and down there and most of the people would also hate to see that, as well as a change in the speed limit. So I think that when you look at the volume of traffic that is in the Mossvale one compared to the Mittagong, it's just completely unsuitable. The other thing is that the number of residents in the Farnborough estate, or whatever it's called, is going to be increasing because there's proposals to do further development. So whilst there's somewhat over 200 properties there now with potentially, 400 cars or whatever, that number will be increasing over time. So the traffic's going to get worse, not better. And just on that, when that development is going ahead, we're going to be seeing B-doubles driving down past this childcare centre, potentially, with cars parked on either side of the road and local traffic wanting to use it and come out of their driveways and get to the highway and the like. So, you know, that's just going to add an additional level of complexity and danger and risk for both the people using the childcare centre, trying to cross the street with prams or whatever, and local residents using the estate. So I note that I'm out of time. I'll thank you for that and ask if you've got any questions.
I'd just like to ask, which is the Mittagong childcare centre you're referring to? Is it in Mittagong or Braemar or?
It's in Braemar, just up from the street on from Renwick Road. I'm not sure. It's 20.
Is that Bessemer Street?
I don't think so. Elsmore, I think it is. 21 Elsmore.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not sure on that. I'm just trusting my memory. But yeah, and it's a quiet residential street similar to Farnborough, but without the traffic flow through it. It's basically a no-through road. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Janine Garrard. I live in Watkins Drive and I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak. I'm going to find it difficult because most things I was going to say have already been mentioned, so I'll just scrap my notes and do my best. I certainly do, I do. Any disagreement? No. No, no. I wanted to add that I bring to this discussion my experience of over 25 years as a preschool teacher, a special needs teacher, a director of an 80-place preschool in a rural area, as well as 5 years serving as coordinator and manager of children's services, including a childcare centre with the Upper Hunter Shire Council. That's my background. I'm just going to skip over the main points that have been mentioned. I certainly concur with all the issues raised regarding traffic, parking and access, and I'll just expand a little bit on the issues that parents face when they're parking and trying to access childcare centres. They usually don't come in isolation with one child. They often come with several children, babies included, which need to be unbuckled from capsules, sometimes put into prams. And of course, there are children who come in wheelchairs. So safe access into the centre from a parked car needs to be provided. If it's not in the car park itself, there needs to be some sort of footpath or crossing for families to access the childcare centre. I've noted too that there is time required for parents, once they're in the centre, to sign their children in and out. They need to pass on information or medications to staff, and in the best interests of the children, these parent and staff contact times cannot be rushed. Many additional vehicular movements occur during the day in a childcare centre. For example, there are many deliveries and supplies of food equipment. There is fire and safety testing that's carried on by contractors, spot checks conducted by licensing and accreditation authorities, grounds and building maintenance, garbage collections, incursions and excursions relating to the children's programs, and much more. Emergency evacuations need to be practiced regularly. They require staff to move all personnel, including sleeping babies and toddlers, to a safe meeting point outdoors. And this is actually done most effectively utilising cots. So toddlers and babies are put into cots. Quickly going down, there are other events that are held, Mother's Day, Grandparents' Days, Multicultural Days. Sometimes these events occur either during centre hours in the evenings or weekends. I'll quickly whip over to, I wanted to mention lighting, when I think it's partly been covered. And the other things were drainage. How will the centre ensure that foreign matter such as Play-Doh, clay, etc. Doesn't impact drains? Wanted to talk about the safe runoff of water from hard surfaces. How will nappies be disposed of? Will they be placed in bins on the street? Laundry, signage, fuels, chemicals, cleaning products, storage, disposal. And in conclusion, I want to state that it is my desire to see children safely and well cared for in an environment that promotes their growth and development. The environment needs to also meet the needs of families and communities. And in my opinion, this aforementioned proposal is inappropriate for this site. It presents high safety risks regarding traffic. It's not in keeping with large block residential and rural nature and zoning of the area, and will potentially reduce the value of the neighbouring properties. So I encourage council to reject this development application. An alternative site needs to be thoroughly researched in order to satisfy all the needs of the children, the families utilising the service, the staff, the neighbours and the general community. And thank you for your consideration of my comments.
Thank you. Just hold your seat for a minute. Just hold your seat for a minute, please. Just sit there for a minute. Thank you. Until we find out if there are any questions, there may not be any. Are there any questions?
Yeah, just one. Disabled, you said people turn up with people with the disabled. There's a disabled car parking space in the design. Is there an issue with that? You're aware of that, I assume?
That's fine if you can get in to the car park. If there is a lot of lining up of cars, you may have to park outside.
Right. But there's a disabled car park there with a that's Australian standard, and in that there's no, you don't have any issue with the design of that car parking space and its location.
I'm not a building or planning expert. My husband is, but I'm not.
Right.
So I can't comment on that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, we have another question for you.
Sorry, given your extensive expertise in the area, I was just wanting to know, have you looked at the plans and obviously looked at the functionality of the centre and where you see problems with it functioning, its layout, its design, that potentially you think won't satisfy all those provisions that you've mentioned, given that it's probably going to have to, if it does get approved, be properly registered and there's rigorous processes that it's going to have to follow. But can you give us some guidance as to where you see it not complying with some of those provisions that you mentioned, those extensive ones?
I would be happy to. I was going to mention the air conditioning units impacting on the neighbours, and I wondered about storage of the hazardous materials.
But have you looked at the plans?
I have looked at the plans. I can't recall them exactly.
Okay.
But I would be happy to look at them further. If you
No,
wanted
I
me
just
to.
thought, no, there's not capacity to do that. There's the consultation process. But I thought if you remember the plans and understand and can say, look, in the COD area, there's deficiencies of this and this. In this area, there's deficiencies in terms of functionality that will be non-compliant with organisational kind of objectives and what needs to be met with a childcare centre. I thought with your qualifications, you could just go bang, these are the problems that you could see through the plans. That's all I wanted to ask, so that we can address them, or potentially the applicant can address them while they're here.
There were some things that I was interested in, and I was also interested in the suggestion that that they not have music outside as a noise abatement issue for the neighbours. I thought, well, children sing. And often staff members will sing instructions to children because it's a more calming and less threatening way to issue an instruction. You sing, now it's time to pack away, instead of saying, pack up time, come on, put the blocks away. So there are those sorts of things that can be looked at, and a gentle approach to a lot of things, but no, I can't specifically recall exactly what my concerns were.
Okay, all right,
But I'm
thank you.
happy to help. Thank you.
Now I have Helen Coventry on the list, but Helen's already spoken. I presume we don't need to hear from you again now. Thank you. Now, speaking for the proposal, I have Benjamin Black attending via Teams. Is Benjamin Black there, and does he have any responses that he wants to make to the matters that have been put before the panel?
Good afternoon, Chair and panel. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay. Obviously, there's a lot that's been raised. I would normally work through the issues, and I'm happy to touch on things that have been raised in repetition, such as traffic. So the council did ask for a detailed intersection analysis as a request for additional information during the process, and that was provided. That analysis looks at the intersection, it analyses between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. and then again at 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. on a Wednesday, the traffic entering and exiting Farnborough Road and also, Drive, and also the traffic movements along the Illawarra Highway. That analysis shows that there will be minimal changes to traffic based upon the spread of the peak in the morning and then in the afternoon of parents arriving to the centre and then leaving. So it's not the case that everyone arrives at one time and leaves at the same time. So it's spread over a 2-hour period in the morning and the afternoon. There was a reference earlier to generation rates and it being underdone, but that's with respect to the peak. And so there are vehicles coming and going outside of the peak period. And so what's stated in the traffic report is the peak period shows 32 to 33 movements in an hour. So that's in the morning and then in the afternoon as well. And then at either side of that, there will be traffic movements as well. In terms of sightlines, this again was another request from council that was analysed, and the Australian standard requires 60 metres in one direction and 65 in the other direction. I don't know the specifics why there is a difference, but there is a difference. And we have in excess of 80 metres to the adjacent corners. So sight distances aren't an issue from our perspective. We comply with the Australian standard. In terms of parking, there is compliant parking provided on site. We would anticipate that the people who, or the parents and guardians who seek to have a child at the centre will do so knowing that they would have to drive to the centre. There is public transport. We say 800 metres. It's been said that's 900, either or. I would suggest that that would not be used as a regular way to access the centre. It would be indeed by a vehicle, by parents or guardians leaving for work in the morning and coming back in the afternoon. That's generally the way it works. And so on that basis, we say that because we're compliant with the DCP and we expect all cars to be accommodated on site, we don't anticipate any parking on the street frontages. So no people walking across the street to cars parked on the verge on the opposite side. We would have sufficient parking. And in fact, the panel may be aware through other applications and experiences with childcare centres that it is often the case that as much as you provide for parking, they're often only half full, even at peak periods. So it's really an excess of parking. And I understand the RMS, or sorry, the Traffic Transport for New South Wales is looking to revise the childcare guidelines to reduce parking requirements on the basis that parking areas are often not full. Now, that's to do with traffic and parking. I'm happy to answer more questions from the panel on that particular aspect that you may ask. There was some discussion around acoustic attenuation. There's a detailed report provided. It's picked up in the plan of management and in various conditions of consent that are proposed. There's measures with respect to the use of the centre, indoor-outdoor use, the staff use, the type of play equipment, where it's located, its design and construction, Noise, as was pointed out by the last submitter, is an issue that's raised there. Mechanical ventilation is addressed. These matters are all commonly addressed in an acoustic report. I'm picking up on, through the discussions, that there may be a point raised by the panel members with respect to the fence heights proposed. So there are 2 metre timber paling fences proposed around the border of the property, except for within the frontage, forward of the building line where it lowers to 1 metre. Now, it would be 2 metres solid, indeed, to the neighbouring properties, and the acoustic treatment is the fact that the fence doesn't have any gaps in it. So that would achieve the acoustic attenuation. The DCP does allow for 1.8 metre high fences and of a solid construction as well. So we would be 200 millimetres above that height, but that's in response to acoustic modelling. There is an opportunity. I'm looking at the plans. The outdoor area is well in excess of what's required. So about 550 square metres required for this capacity, whereas we've got about 1,500 square metres. So about 1,000 square metres more in outdoor space than is needed. So there is capacity to pull the fence in off the boundary if that was seen to be a favourable outcome by the panel. We could landscape on either side of the fence and to adjust or create a transition to those neighbouring properties. That's all I'd have to say on acoustics. Again, if the panel would like to ask me further questions, of course. In terms of safety, there is discussion fairly detailed in the plan of management on that aspect, and it's reiterated in the council's draft conditions of consent. And we'll be happy to, of course, discuss that as well. Other matters are raised, and I think that the panel's dealt with those neatly in terms of permissibility and matters related to that. Underpinning this whole application is a desire to, as much as this is a rural residential area, we haven't sought to provide a childcare centre that's at odds with that context and character. So we've maintained the existing building and added to it. So single story, pitched roofs, residential materials. So that's all the childcare guidelines ask in terms of character. That attempt and effort is made to be consistent with the character. We've got large landscape deep soil zones surrounding. We have got very minimal signage. These aspects all go towards respecting what's there. And the operators who are the applicants understand that they will need to be part of a local community and will look to do so in an appropriate manner, and that's how the design's been thought about. That's all I have to say on the objectors' comments, and I'm happy to take questions. Before I give back to you, panel, just one aspect. The conditions of consent make reference to a signage plan or a signage detail, but the signage plan has not been referenced in the approved list of documents. So there is a signage plan provided, and if the panel is minded to approve the application, the list of approved documents would need to be updated to reference the signage plan.
Thank you. Now, I think there are questions from the panel. We'll start off with Stephen Leafley.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Black, for your presentation. Just and going through the issues relating to traffic and the work that's been done on that, appreciate your comments in relation to that. My concern, as you'll note from my questions to the adjoining owners, is on that 2 metre high acoustic fence in an area that's sort of a rural residential, as I think you might have mentioned, with open fencing at the moment, 2 metre high. Acoustic fence around, I don't think is a very sensitive treatment to those adjoining properties. There's a condition in the consent or the draft consent suggesting a landscape plan be amended and presented at the CC stage. A condition also requiring a redesign of that acoustic fencing and acoustic treatment. Would you have any issue with us doing that so that the fencing wasn't always around the boundary of that property?
No, not at all. And as I've said, that there is opportunity to alter fencing arrangements given the excess of open space that we have.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, we have one other.
Sorry, can I just ask you, where's the closest childcare centre to this one, if this was to go ahead? And secondly, where do you think, I presume the owner or the operator has looked at, where's the demand coming from to service it? So just to get an idea of context around that.
Yeah, sure. I'm not actually aware of how far this centre is from another centre. In previous years gone by, it may have been the case that you'd look at something like that, but the childcare guidelines and the education part of the SEP actually precludes that as a consideration. So it's no longer the case that we look at proximity to other centres, but I do know that the owners did their research and they see high demand, and there is software available that actually tells you about demand as well, but as I understand it, and there is high demand, and that influenced the child ratios in the area. So that's as far as I know.
Is another question from the panel?
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. I was just interested in your comment in regards to the traffic review that you undertook on a Wednesday. So I just wanted to understand a little bit more about that. Was it undertaken on a day when Moss Vale High School and the King's School was operating? Because traffic along Illawarra Highway is generally very heavy between the hours of 7 and 10, heading down to Argyle Street and also back to Robertson.
I understand. It was the traffic consultant that did the assessment. It wasn't our firm. We're the town planners. It was undertaken, I'm looking at the detail now, on the 13th of August, which is a Wednesday. Now, that is during a school day, a standard school day, between 7 a.m, 10 a.m, 3 p.m, and 6 p.m. Those 3-hour blocks, morning and afternoon. The full detail is provided in a submission to council.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, hang on.
Can I just, for the sake of consistency and transparency, ask Mr. Black to declare his interest in this matter? Because we don't even know.
He's the town planner in the employ of the applicant.
Thank you.
He's the applicant's town planner. Is that correct, Mr.? Is that a fair description, Mr. Black?
I think so. That's very accurate.
Yeah. So yeah, he's speaking on behalf of the applicant. I think that's all of the questions that we had. Yes.
For clarity, my name's Gordon Newell. I live in Windsor Crescent.
Yeah.
I find it highly unlikely that the developer doesn't know where the closest other childcare is, and it's 3 minutes away.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for that. There you go. We need to move on to the next item. I think we've given that a good airing, and I thank you for your contributions. We'll give that proper consideration, and there's a lot to... Thank you for your contributions. That's it. We're finished.
What happens now?
Well, we will make a determination. We'll go back to caucus on the matter, having regard to what's been said, and to see what we think is an appropriate response from the panel. We will come back today. I can't say what time, but once we've... are you having trouble hearing me? I'm just about shouting here. Like, you know, I mean, what do I got to do? We'll be coming back later this afternoon once we've finished caucusing, however long that takes, and we'll announce the the outcome in brief with full details to be published on the council's website in the next few days, the next few business days, ideally by Friday, or very soon thereafter if that's not possible. Now, yes.
Childcare centres under construction at the moment in Moss Vale.
Sorry?
There are 2 childcare centres
Okay.
under construction
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Well, Mr Chair, could I just add that the question about the high demand for childcare centres,
Yeah.
the statistics are currently sort of projecting that ages of kids from 0 to 5 is only going to be at half the rate of the population expected increase to 2030.
I hear what you say. What we have to do as a panel is determine whether the application is lawful and under what conditions should it either be approved or refused. So it's permitted in the zone, and so we have to consider it on that basis. We're not here to work out competition in the marketplace. You know, it wouldn't matter if there was one next door. It's not a matter for us to decide whether this is okay because of that or not. It's permissible in the zone. Does it meet the other requirements of council is the question that we have to answer. And is it reasonable? Thank you.
And does your community want it?
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's the end of the dialogue. We're finished. There's no more. I'm not going to answer any more questions. We're moving on to the next item. Thank you.
That's true, and in winter.
Oh, when it comes, eh?
Why would you need light?
Speech. We move on to item 6.2. This is the final public matter. It's DA 24/1098 relating to 340 to 346 Argyle Street, Mossvale, the Mossvale Hotel. Alterations and additions. Speaking for the proposal, I have Scott Lee, planning consultant, and also we have, I believe, Jamie Maloof, the owner. Is Mr. Maloof here, or is it just you, Mr. Lee?
Just myself, Chair. Apologies from Jamie, who's the owner-operator of the hotel, but couldn't make it this afternoon.
Right.
So thank you, Chair. Thank you, panel members. I'm speaking on behalf of the owners and applicants.
You're in the employ of the owner? You're a town
Correct.
planner
I'm
in
the planning
employ of the
consultant for the owner and applicant for this development application.
Yep.
So speaking in favour, and obviously quite pleased with the recommendation for approval, and we thank the staff for all their efforts to getting this far. There is one matter I'd just like the panel to consider in terms of the proposed conditions of development consent, and that's the deferred matter, which, excuse me, requires us to enter into a planning agreement for a deficiency in on-site car parking. We have no problem with doing that. I just want to raise the question of the number of deficient spaces as calculated by council. We fully acknowledge the two lost spaces from 14 down to 12, 14 being what should be on the site now, 12 is what we are proposing to provide in a reconfigured arrangement on the site. We think that's a better, safer, more efficient car park, and I think if you read Council's report, Council's engineers also agree that it will be a better functioning car park for the hotel. So we acknowledge the loss of 2 spaces. We have issue, and we always have with the council officers, in terms of the second 2 deficient spaces, which are, I suppose, as a consequence of the additional floor space that is part of the development. Our argument, which is supported by a submitted traffic parking analysis done by Chris Palmer, his traffic engineering team, which was provided to council, makes our argument that the additional floor space, which I think totals 30 square metres over the entire building, is not traffic generating or additional parking generating floor space. It's there to improve the efficiency of what is already there. It won't fundamentally change the operation of the hotel or visitation to the hotel or any of the things that you might consider generates parking demand. It's to improve access into and out of the building. It's to improve internal movement. It improves some of the amenity for the gaming area, which is where the majority of the additional 30 square metres sits. But it doesn't increase the number of gaming machines. That's a separate issue completely. There is no proposal whatsoever to increase the gaming machines. And that's what would generate additional customers or visitation to the hotel. Hotel's been there obviously 100 years. It's part and parcel of Moss Vale Town Centre. It's never had compliant car parking. We're improving the car parking, albeit reducing the numbers by 2. We acknowledge that. Happy to enter into an agreement with council for 2. Not so keen on entering into agreement for 4 because we don't believe that second 2 is justified or required in this circumstance. So I'm just simply asking the panel to consider that when they consider their decision. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I might just jump in. Would you then be accepting of a condition limiting the number of gaming machines to the existing 15?
If the panel sees that as a reasonable condition, yes, because there is no proposal at the moment to be seeking additional machines. That's not a part of the DA consideration.
It's fundamental to your argument, isn't it, that the number of machines aren't changing, so therefore the parking demand isn't changing due to that?
It's most definitely a part of our argument.
Yep.
The other part, complementary to that, is that whether or not there was an extra gaming machine or not, we don't believe that that's going to change the visitation pattern of the hotel.
There's 15 there now, and they're pretty. There doesn't need to be room for too many more.
There's no proposal to be any more.
Yeah.
My argument, or our argument, is simply that the minor change in floor area to the hotel, and particularly in the way it's configured, will have no impact on car parking demand. The car parking area that we are providing as a result of the development will be more efficient, albeit 2 less than is what technically should be there. And we acknowledge that and are happy to enter into the agreement. We don't think it's fair and reasonable to add the second 2 for the additional floor space, and that's what we're asking the panel to do.
Okay, we'll see if there's any other questions from the panel. I think there might be from Stephen.
So I'm hearing that you would accept a condition limiting the number of machines there to 15. That's good. My next question's, there's a $50,000 offer on the table. That's $50,000 whether it's 2 or 4 car parking spaces?
No, not my understanding. My understanding was that we were in a position to progress the application. We needed to make an offer to the council to enter into the voluntary planning agreement. We did so on the basis of, at that point in time, an understanding that council's position was a deficiency of 4, and the offer made by the applicant was $10,000 per space for $40,000. The feedback from the council, not the assessment officers, but the strategic planning team who deal with the planning agreements, was that they were happy to enter into an agreement, but $50,000, i.e. $12,500 per space. So based on my logic and the council's response so far, it would be $25,000 for 2 spaces.
So you're making a submission then that the deferred commencement condition should be amended from 50,000 down to 25,000.
Well, again, it's the way council has dealt with it has been to have the development assessment process at arm's length to the planning agreement. Fair enough. The development assessment says 4 spaces, and that's what the deferred commencement condition talks about. My understanding of council's position in terms of a planning agreement and the dollars attached to that is currently 50,000, but it's based on 4 spaces because that's what we put in our initial offer. If the condition was to have 2 spaces, my assumption would be that the council's offer would be reduced at a pro rata rate, and that would end up with $25,000. It would be useful, in my view, to have that tied up neatly into the condition of consent. I'm not sure that that's what council wanted to see or whether it's necessary. But 2 spaces is the first point I want to make. And then on what we've already know from what council has told us, I would anticipate that would be $25,000.
Okay, so can I just get a yes or no answer to this? I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, just yes or no. Is the offer currently on the table from the applicant for a $50,000 VPA based on 4 car parking spaces?
The offer that was put to council was
Yes or
for
no,
4
please.
spaces. No, sorry, I need to
Is that
explain it.
no, you've explained it. Is it?
Well,
is
the
that-
answer is no, because it's 4
You
spaces.
haven't made an
and
offer?
No, we have made an offer, but it was 4 spaces, $40,000.
40,000. Okay.
And council said, no, we're happy to enter it, but 50,000.
Okay. So council's come back to you and said 50,000. Right. Okay. If we accept your position of 2 car parking spaces, you're saying it should be $25,000.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Got that all clear. Right. My next point I want to discuss with you, Mr. Lee, is the processing time of this application. It's been in for quite a period of time.
Yes.
As you'll be aware, this council is well within the crosshairs of the state government in terms of processing times.
Correct.
Right. I noticed that this application was lodged without a heritage impact statement. I note it was lodged without floor space ratio being calculated and a clause 4.6 application being lodged. Those matters went to delaying the determination because RFIs had to be issued and those had to be done with this application. We've discussed this, you and I have discussed this before in previous panel meetings about applications being delayed. Part of that reason that they get delayed is when applications aren't competent and then I haven't got all the required information. And that then ends up relating to RFIs being issued and processes getting bogged down, council staff getting tied up in those sorts of things. Do you support a process whereby council staff will refuse to accept applications if they don't have the required information, such as, in this instance, a heritage impact statement where you're in a heritage conservation area and a clause 4.6 where you exceed the gross, the floor space ratio, the FSR? Do you accept that applications should come in with the relevant information to enable assessment to occur in an orderly manner? Timely matter, yes.
Oh, I mean, I can't argue with that. I'd have to say, yes, of course I do. How that occurs, obviously, is always going to be, I agree 100% in principle of what you've said. Applicants should be competent, correct, comprehensive, and all of those things. I do not support, I support the retention of some flexibility and judgment exercised by the officers of council in what is necessary at any one time for an application to be accepted into the system. That's a general position that I would hold. I understand the value of some checklists, but I think that might be overused. I'm not saying that applications should be lodged without necessary documentation. Sometimes that's not, the clause 4.6 in this instance, for instance, was perhaps not immediately obvious that it was necessary based on what we were doing. It came to light that it was, that there was a excess of existing floor space. We've rectified that. It's been a long time, but as I said at the very beginning, I thank the council for their efforts to get it to this stage, because they've been patient with the applicant, and the applicant has done their best to respond to the council in all these matters. So we've now got to a point today where we're happy with the recommendation other than this one point.
And that's in relation to this. I guess what I'm saying to you is I've been here on this panel for 5 years, and you're the major planning consultant that comes before.
One of.
Well, the major one that I see here, right? And, you know, and I act as a consultant as well. And so I take that responsibility, that it's as much responsibility as the consultant who's putting the application in, as much as the staff. So putting in, it's like putting a race car on a racetrack. You don't put the race car on the racetrack with half a tank of fuel and bald tyres and expect it to go round quickly. Same with the DA. You lodge the DA with all the right information. It's all competent. The better the application that goes in, the quicker it comes out.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. I think that, you know, I could talk for, I'm not going to, for a long time about this. Oh, on the heritage, if I may argue with you about that.
And there's 4.6, which is
Jurisdictional
I think that, well, obviously, I'm not going to argue about that, because that is correct. I would perhaps want to debate you about the necessity for a heritage impact statement simply because it's in a conservation area.
You could have, but you could have consulted.
The nature of the development that we were doing.
You should have consulted council before lodging. If you were uncertain, that's the opportunity to
Well, I wasn't uncertain. In my mind,
contact council.
It was not necessary.
Well, I'd suggest if it's in a heritage conservation area, you'd be asking that question.
Just so to fill out the discussion, sorry to keep you waiting, but there was 2 applications for the Moss Vale Hotel. One of them involved alterations and additions to the hotel, the original portions of the hotel, including the accommodation upstairs. There was a comprehensive heritage impact assessment done for that DA. I took the view, perhaps unwisely, that this application did not require a heritage impact statement because of the nature of the work that was being done. The back of the hotel is not original. It's a dog's breakfast. This is going to make it better, and it has no impact whatsoever on the heritage. There is no compunction on an applicant to provide a heritage impact statement for this particular DA, and that's the view we took. Unwisely, maybe, but I stand by my original decision. I think it's a valid criticism in terms of the clause 4.6, and that should have been investigated more closely to make sure there wasn't a discrepancy. As it worked out, the difference was what, 1.9 square metres? 4% on whatever that is, on over 1,000 square metres or whatever. You know, give us a break. Anyway, it's been a really good discussion. Thank you. My point remains. We think 2 spaces is reasonable, not 4.
Yeah, we hear you on that.
Thank you.
Another one.
I have one. And this is in regards to a potential conflict. I just wanted to know whether or not Peter Dean has any interest in the Moss Vale Hotel.
I don't know whether that's true or not. Peter Dean is not a person I have been working with, or didn't commission me, or he hasn't been involved directly with me in this application or at the moment. So no, I don't really know your answer to your question.
Thank you. Look, it was just that I was told he was a part owner with the Maloofs. That's all.
He may well be, but Mr. Maloof, Jamie Maloof, is the person that I have been dealing directly with, and the architects.
He's the owner, is he, Mr. Maloof? Or
Well, he's certainly been authorised the lodgement of the DA, and he's been my point of contact. He's commissioned me. Mr. Dean has not been involved as far as I'm aware.
Thank you.
There being no other items on the agenda, I can declare that the meeting is closed at approximately 4:18. Item 5.1, planning proposal for land at 37 Yarrawa Road, Moss Vale. The panel supports the report recommendation and the planning proposal in principle, subject to a number of matters which will be set out in detail in the minutes to be published on Council's website. Item 6.1 DA 25/2022, alterations and additions to a dwelling house for use as a childcare centre, 5 Farnborough Drive, Moss Vale. The panel considers that the proposal can be supported subject to additional information as set out in detail in the minutes to be published on Council's website. Item 6.3 DA 24/1098 Moss Vale Hotel, alterations and additions. The panel accepts the applicant's 4.6 variation request in respect of floor space ratio and agrees with the report recommendation subject to an amendment to a condition limiting the number of gaming machines to 15. Full details to be set out in the minutes to be published on Council's website. I would like to thank my fellow panel members and Council staff for their assistance today. I declare the meeting closed at 4:18 p.m. 5:18 p.m. I beg your pardon. 5:18 p.m. Thank you very much.